Listen up, sports fans. Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We are live on a Friday. We got through whatever the hell that was on Thursday night. And, of course, my co-host back with us here, Chase Steffes on the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening. Thanks for making us part of your evening. Look, Chase, I mean, I don't know what to really say other than the fact that, like, I feel for every one of, like, Chicago fans. I have a couple people closest to me on our network that are Chicago fans, and boy, I just feel really bad for them. This is just a horrible time for them, and you better hope that Ryan Poles makes this better.
Yeah, first things first, Wife's birthday was really good yesterday. It was we had fun knife and axe throwing and everything, and then we went out to Cheesecake Factory afterwards. So it was pretty good. But yeah, no, I agree that the Chicago Bears are in a heap of trouble right now, because I saw some highlights earlier that kind of like got me frustrated. It would have gotten me frustrated if I was a Bears fan. At one point, they were 4-2 going into that Commanders game where they lost with the Hail Mary, and that they have not won a game since then, and it's been horrendous. The fact that the O-line has to be your top priority this offseason. Whether you get it in free agency, whether you get it in the draft, it's got to be your top priority this offseason to focus on the Bears, along with your head coach.
So let's start with that, because I know that we've talked about head coaching fits. In fact, I've started up a new show, which is exclusive on YouTube with the Sports Wave Network, and that is the Jake Silva Experience. And the first episode is out. Check it out. But the only thing that I had to talk about is I was watching the highlights of this game through and through, and it was just an absolute boring snooze fest. I thought the Rams and Niners was bad. This was even worse. The fact that it became a baseball score at the end of the night. I mean, Seattle, Geno Smith didn't play any better. And then you look at Caleb Williams, he's under duress. He's not playing his best. And at the same time, the offensive line is just continuously letting him down. And here's what's hard about this. You watch that performance, and then you're also listening to every single Chicago Bears fan express their deep-rooted frustration that they've had with this organization for the longest time. And this all starts with the ownership of the McCaskies. Because I listen, I've never been to Chicago, but I've heard a lot of great things about the city. Okay, it's a beautiful city. There's lots to do up from there, lots of different attractions, and they're very rich with their sports history. You go back to the Cubs, the White Sox, the Blackhawks, and even with the Bulls. But when it comes to the Bears, we know that the monsters of the Midway mentality, that 1950s television, they haven't even kicked it out the window yet. And we thought that the offseason, once they got Keenan Allen, once they ended up getting a bunch of these offensive pieces, we thought, okay, this was primed for Caleb Williams to come in and, make the appearance and probably be a difference maker in Chicago. Well, they were 4-2, and like Chase had reiterated, that before that game against Washington, I thought there was some hope. But the difference was you saw everything crash land and collapse down the second that the play calling was way too backyard football, like with Shane Waldron. He's gone. You saw with that Hail Mary, things were starting to collapse really bad. And then you watch the Detroit Lions game during Thanksgiving, and the Lions players, because of just the competency of Matt Eberflus not taking a timeout, had Lions fans going, what in the hell just happened? And then that's where it served. Eberflus got fired. And then in the end, this has been a humongous roller coaster. And I feel bad for Caleb Williams. Say what you will. Lots of hecklers are out there because they're talking about his fingernails. I don't care about that. I've seen how talented Caleb Williams really, really is. And by the way, this is the first time in a long time Caleb Williams actually threw an interception. Did you know that? Yeah, he's been protecting the ball. But I also do think he was a little bit more overbearing of the ball, but I think that's because they've been pulling on the reins too much. Let them loose. Let the offense end up cooking. Get the scripted plays under control. They couldn't. So a lot of this heat is on Ryan Poles, who, by the way, as a GM, he was also a former offensive lineman. And the offensive line, by the way, with what I just checked before coming here on the show, they are the cheapest spent offensive line amongst all 32 teams in the NFL. Did you know that? $23.5 million on this offensive line? Cheap. And it didn't get better. And this is what happens when you have a cheap offensive line. That equals sacks, quarterback hits, and not enough time in the pocket for you to even move the offense. Ryan Poles, his seat is probably sizzling and cooking right now because you've got to make this right. A former offensive lineman that can't get an offensive line right, that doesn't really sit well. And Bears fans are very passionate about Chicago because they want to see this team win. They want to see this team actually be creative and not so dull and boring with checkdowns and, all about defense every single year, every snap that they play a game. I want to turn around and look on the television and go, man, that's the most clever Chicago offense I've ever seen in my life. But that has been the rooted issue. And Chicago fans, boy, did you listen to that? Boy, they were really giving it to the McCaskies, and worst of all, they were giving it to everyone upstairs. I mean, it was bad. And I'll tell you what, there's some audio up and on this, but Caleb Williams expressed the frustration, and here's what he had to say after the loss and what it truthfully needs to happen for this organization to build its relevancy.
Yeah, I've only been here for, it's my first year. So, their frustrations, go way longer back than I've been here. My job is to, go out there and win games. And, we don't focus on outside noise. The fans are, they're going to cheer and maybe boo sometimes. And, you can't react to that. It's not something that, we react to. We have a job to do. And, sometimes, you don't do so well on the job some days, and some days you're pretty consistent. Some days you play a great game. So,
but this has been going on for years. It's been a deep-rooted, really bad track record. I mean, I know we heckle about the Detroit Lions for a very long time. So now this is where I'm going to segue to this for a couple minutes left on this take is Chase and I, we've been breaking it down as far as who do you hire. Chase believes that Ben Johnson could be, he could be the fit for Chicago. But this is where the pushback really happens. Even though I love Ben Johnson, and I do believe he is a very clever, and I also do think he's well respected in the league and mostly in Detroit. But I do believe he's going to get a head coaching job somewhere. But let me ask you this. After that loss for Chicago, and here's another bit that I will play as well to make you think, could Ben Johnson honestly coach this? This is much bigger than just trying to figure out offense. This is a culture damage to the root. And this is why, and here's the funny thing, and I was talking about this prior on the show. They had an opportunity to hire Jim Harbaugh. You know, Jim wanted to go to Chicago originally, but what backfired is Kevin Warren, who had his deep-rooted ego in his Big Ten days, blocked it because he had some sort of beef with Jim Harbaugh. But you know what? Sometimes you got to tuck your tail in and you got to make it better for the fan base. Nobody cares what your track record was in Big Ten if you got beef. Jim Harbaugh clearly is happy. Clearly he's shaping the culture for the Chargers, and you missed out on that. You need to have a culture setter to restore this fan base. That means you got to get a Harbaugh. You got to get a Reed. You got to get a Tomlin. You got to get somebody able to shape this culture. And I'll be honest with you, I feel like Vrabel would be a guy to shape this culture. What's different about this is that Vrabel, from what we learned in Tennessee, the tangibles about it is he's never taken the defense for granted, because your first through fourth string players on that Tennessee defense, they all played 110%. None of them ever gave up on plays. That's where check, that's a plus. The other thing is he also took a Ryan Tannehill, which was going through the whole hard times with Miami with different coaches, and turned them into a number one seed in the AFC. And they were also smash mouth football, which is what Chicago is. If you give them that running back, because I'll be honest with you, when it comes to DeAndre Swift, that ain't working. You're probably going to end up needing to draft a running back. And I would rather be in the safe side with that. But beforehand, I got to fix this offensive line. I need to go get some offensive line pieces, because I got to protect Caleb Williams. I got to develop a strong, healthy run game. And then not only, it's not like he's lacking weapons. They got Cole Kmet. They got DJ Moore. They got Roma Dunze. They don't particularly need Keenan Allen, even though that he is a very nice piece. You could go get somebody else up on it. Maybe you can even address one in the draft. There's plenty of receivers to go around. I mean, when I tell you how many receivers are in the free agent market and those that could be on the move, it's fascinating. But Mike Vrabel brings something to the table. I know all of you want to see Ben Johnson there. And I know Ben Johnson, and who knows, if he gets this job, good for him. But I ask you, do you have the mental capacity to deal with a culture damage like this? I mean, you just heard it. Fans were going, sell the team, F the McCaskies. Every single one of them were chanting all of this. You think Ben Johnson's ready for that? That's why I think for Mike Vrabel, strong, alpha, intimidating, and the only thing that Mike Vrabel would only need to do is get a competent offensive coordinator. That's really all you got to do. And think about it. Dan Campbell, we know as an offensive player in the past, he's a culture guy. Biting kneecaps, taking risks, going for it on fourth down. That's a culture thing. Okay? And what is his right-hand man successor? Ben Johnson. You think Mike Vrabel can't find that right-hand man to be his next successor? Because Vrabel's capable of making that defense. And by the way, this could be the same that could go for the New York Jets. But I feel like that if you're going for a Jets team, I mean, you're going to have to be dealing with Aaron Rodgers. But you got Chicago going into your second year with Caleb Williams, and you're instilling trust in a young quarterback that all he's looking for is he's looking for support. Put your arms around him, guide him, support him, give him confidence. And I feel like Mike Vrabel could do that. But I just think this is such a deep-rooted culture damage that I'm not sure it's going to take more than a clever offensive-minded guy to even fix this. I have nothing against Ben Johnson, but that is a lot. Chase, I know you vouched for Ben Johnson, but I'm telling you, after what I heard in that fan base last night, this is more than just fixing an offense. This is bad.
Well,
And
the
I
thing is,
don't
like
know how worse
you
it's
can.
gonna get.
I mean, you can sit there and say that, Ben. I mean, I understand where you're coming from. Mike Vrabel would be a phenomenal fit. I mean, and my top three choices are all offensive guys, just because that's what they need. They need that offensive-minded guy. Now, Cliff Kingsbury is another option that I got, just because he's familiar with Caleb Williams and he could instill a culture in there that, like what he did with Arizona. Kyler Murray just didn't like him. Now, the only other guys I would take is Ben Johnson and Joe Brady. I think Joe Brady, with the way that he's been able to work with Sean McDermott and Josh Allen and everything, I think that's a good fit for them. But we don't know what these guys are going to have as a culture coming in there. I mean, Ben Johnson, he may not take any shit from anybody, and he may sit there and be like, I don't give a damn. You're going to be benched if you keep this shit going and everything. Their main the problem with the Bears is they've been the worst Chicago franchise since the mid 90s, because you have had the Cubs win a World Series, the White Sox win a World Series, the Bulls won a NBA championship like in the 90s, like as early as the late 90s, and the Blackhawks have won. Now the Bears haven't won anything. They went to the Super Bowl in the 2000s, but they haven't won anything and haven't been good since then. And I think that the problem that you're seeing is Ryan Poles needs to focus like solely heavily on getting the right guy on this team, and asking him during the interview, what is your fit for this team? How are you going to get this team back on track? The three things that you got to look for is the culture and how you're going to build that, the offensive scheme and how you're going to run it with Caleb Williams, and how you're going to get this team to win more games, and then also the coaching staff that he's going to bring in. Because whoever it is, it doesn't solely fall on him. It falls on the coaching staff, but like it also falls on what you bring in with this team. Looking at the offensive linemen that are available in free agency, there are three guys that I would get to help this O-line. Zach Martin, because I guarantee the Cowboys are not going to offer him a contract because they're trying to pay Parsons. They're paying a lot for CD, and they already are paying a lot for Dak. I would try to go after Ryan Kelly, the center from the Colts, and then Kevin Zeitler, who is a guard. A veteran guard. And then in the draft, you draft the left tackle in Will Campbell or Kelvin Banks. You just fixed your entire O-line in one offseason by paying for them and by drafting them. And, I'm sorry to sit here and say, people can sit here and dog on the Jets and the Browns and stuff all they want, but the Bears have had a worse QB situation than the Browns have. They have never had a 4,000-yard passer in their franchise history. That is sad.
Well, this is the thing. And so here's where I'm going to put the standpoint upon that. So Chicago's just never developed an offense, period. Mm-hmm. I mean, they never did. What was the last time you ever seen an impactful wide receiver out of this organization?
Alshon Jeffrey.
Only one. Here's the thing. They've had a couple, and I love watching them play. I mean, from Alshon Jeffrey, Johnny Knox, Bernard Berrian, but Brandon Marshall was already in this league. And
that's true.
So here's where this is where I'm hoping you're following me on this, is because Chicago, for those years since 1985, they have not been that clever on offense. And this is an organization that had a Walter Payton. They had a Jim McMahon as a quarterback before you fast forward, and then you bring in Jay Cutler, who was your last winningest quarterback that made this team what it was. But it was solely because you were gambling on the defense with Julius Peppers at the time, Brian Urlacher, Lance Briggs, and you also had Peanut Tillman. They had such good defensive players. That has never been a problem. My problem is they barely move the offense. And look, I love watching Matt Forte with Spurs, but they need to make this better than it's not just being a one-year wonder type team. I want it to be a track record of 5+ years. And that's what Chicago really has a big problem with. And mind you, know what it is with the city of Chicago, but a lot of this has to turn from their upstairs front offices and their owners. Because here's the thing, Chicago, the Cubs, they managed to break their 110-year curse, winning a World Series in 2016.
Oh.
But it took that long, right? So, and then at the same time, what were they after? I mean, you let go of Chris Bryant, Javi Baez, Anthony Rizzo. They let go of so many players. And Theo Epstein's gone. And so now they're trying to bring this track record in, but just recently they traded Cody Bellinger to the Yankees. And then here's the other thing. The White Sox since 2005. That has been another team that seriously went south. And I think a lot of that is because once you hire Tony La Russa, everything went south. It's not the same team. And then worst of all, you're wasting the talents of Yohan Moncada, Luis Robert, and multiple others. And you just shipped off Garrett Crochet to Boston. So, and then the Chicago Blackhawks, who won 3 championships in 5 years from 10, 13, and 15. With a great coach in Joel Keenville, who had Jonathan Taves, Patrick Kane, and they had Brent Seabrook and even Marian Hossa. Like, they were a very highly explosive offensive team. They were. And they were the team that they won 3 titles in 5 years. That was a dynasty. Nobody was stopping Chicago by that point. And the only team building a different dynasty was Pittsburgh. So then you get the Bulls, who we know, we watched The Last Dance, and we watched 6 championships with Michael Jordan, but you have to think about Scottie Pippen and all the rest of them. Michael couldn't get past the Detroit Bad Boys of the Pistons. He couldn't do it. They were physical, they were in your face, and if I remember correctly, they were throwing elbows multiple times when they were in those playoff runs. They couldn't get past them. Once you gave me Scottie Pippen, and you gave me Dennis Rodman, you gave me Tony Kukoc, and you gave me a coach outside of the previous one who was really good, and once Phil Jackson came in and introduced that triangular offense, that changed everything. And then since then, the Bulls have been trying to find another track record of relevancy. And they thought they had it with Derrick Rose, but then the injuries, the inconsistencies, it's the same old thing. So when I look at what the Chicago Bears, and this is where I push back on, and let me explain to you about those 3 you just named. Ben Johnson, could he be good outside of Detroit and outside of him being an offensive coordinator? I don't know. But again, we won't know that until he actually takes a head coaching job. Joe Brady, let me be honest with you. Joe Brady has been around success. What do I mean by that? He was around success with Sean Payton in New Orleans. He was also around success when he built up around with Joe Burrow and that amazing 2019 LSU Tigers team. So what is he if there's not success? That's my problem with Joe Brady. And then the last one, Cliff Kingsbury. I understand Cliff Kingsbury can be very clever when it comes to an offensive mind, but you are a Cliff Kingsbury who had Johnny Manziel, you had Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech, you had Kyler Murray, and the problem with Arizona is Arizona went to the playoffs once and got absolutely manhandled by Aaron Donald and the Rams, and they never went back since then. So Kingsbury has had a struggling time, and Kingsbury said it himself, I'd rather just be the play caller than be the head coach. He has voiced that. And I think it's okay. But this is why that I'm like, people don't realize when you look at Chicago, much like Dallas and Los Angeles and New York, these are big media people. Okay, when you step in and you sit down at that press conference, at that desk, and you got to take questions, you know what questions you have to answer, which are hard-nosed, is how are you going to address this to the fan base? How are you going to change this culture? Is this offense going to get better? Can we see Caleb Williams turn things around? Could we finally see the Bears in the playoffs? Could we finally snap this losing streak? That's a lot. And I'm telling you, a lot of this is rooted from the very core of the McCaskies. Not Virginia. It's more of the Sun. And that's why that, like, all of this is because it's been accounted for. I'm telling you, I've been around Chicago people, and they're like, look, we can't make a mistake, and we can't afford to mess this up if we get an offensive coordinator. But if you get a culture guy like Vrabel, who's been there, done that. And by the way, you also know this about Mike Vrabel. You know Mike Vrabel was around Urban Meyer at Ohio State at the time, before he ended up getting the job in Tennessee.
Yeah. I knew that he was with Urban Meyer, but the problem that everybody wants to overlook is you spent your time getting rid of Justin Fields because you did not think that he was the answer at quarterback. You drafted a brand new quarterback for this system and for this team, and you can see defensive coaches come in and have success, aka DeMeco Ryans and Dan Quinn.
Mm-hmm.
Dan Quinn hired Cliff Kingsbury, a great offensive mind. That's why it's working. But DeMeco Ryans, Bobby Slowick was a great offensive mind last year, not so well this year.
Right.
You bring in Mike Vrabel, you have to hit on that offensive coordinator and that offensive mind in order for you to succeed. Because if you bring in another defensive coach after you just fired a defensive coach, and you bring in another defensive-minded guy, you have to hit on the offensive side of the ball. And even if they do, what's to say he's not gone in like 3 to 5 years if he gets Caleb looking like, an MVP candidate? Because now you're going to lose that guy, and, you're going to be sitting here like, well, damn, now the offense just looks like crap because, we lost our offensive guy. If you bring in that offensive-minded head coach, somebody that has been known to run a very successful top 5 offense, like a Ben Johnson and everything, you can then fix the offensive woes that you have and the offensive questions that you're asking about, and everything else will fall in line. Because what is the one thing in the NFL that fixes, heartbreak, fixes, anger, sadness, despair, anything? That is winning. And the best way to do that is to get everybody on the same page. And the best way to do that is to get one side of the ball fixed while the other one is, good. Because we've seen this defense is good, but the offense is just in massive shambles. The same way that the Browns are right now.
But now this is what you said. What's the one thing that cures a culture damage? Winning. And you said it yourself, because here's the funny thing. The Chargers came out 5-12 with Brandon Staley, and you saw how players gave up on that coach because they were tired of being so close and then they never make it. And then they have a collapse. And so the fan base is pissed because with the one thing that has always stuck around in that Chargers fan base is Dean Spanos has been known to be cheap with coaches. Okay, he never pays coaches more than $15 million a year. What happened this offseason? He finally nipped it in the butt and got Jim Harbaugh. And I think the other saving grace for this is because he's got Justin Herbert. If Herbert was not what he was, that coaching job would have not been attractive. I'm being completely 110% honest with you. But because Herbert's there, and because he needs that coaching guidance and he needs those wins that everybody keeps hounding him on, that's where Jim Harbaugh was going to work his magic. Now, granted, the jury's out on Greg Roman, and we all know that. Because I think with Greg Roman, and much like with Chip Kelly, I think the game's kind of far past them with just their play scheme. But, however, Jim Harbaugh has that track record of being a winningest coach because he brings that winning mentality. He brings that winning culture vibe that players get interested in. And he's so quirky, but players are fine with that. They're happy, they're excited, and they're getting the best out of every single player. Vrabel, from the A.J. Brown situation, I don't know the full detail. But I think besides that, because we know how wide receivers can be divas, right? Mm-hmm. But players loved Vrabel. And Vrabel was the kind of former player who knows how to relate to a lot of these players. Winning culture, winning mindset.
But what position did him and Harbaugh play? What position did Harbaugh play when they were in the NFL?
I understand that.
They were Harbaugh's an offensive guy. Vrabel's a defensive guy.
But what is the one thing that both those coaches have in common? They have a right-hand man. Jim's is Jesse Minters. Why? Because the defense for the last 4 years have been bottom ranked. They've been bottom ranked. You bring in Jesse Minter, your right-hand man, look what happens when he's got a defense. They don't have to solely work on defense. But if Mike Vrabel hires, like let's say hypothetically, he hired an Eric Bieniemy, do you know how that offense would actually look with Caleb? That's what I'm saying. There are plenty. That's what people don't realize. There are plenty of options there when it comes to offensive coordinators. I mean, they're everywhere as long as they hit them, but they have to be the right-hand men. Defense is never going to be a problem because Vrabel's got his hand on the defense. We already know that. But that's why you got to get the smart offensive coach in the offensive coordinator side, which is like someone like a Bieniemy.
But they are hard to find. OCs are very hard to find in the NFL. Successful ones.
You'd be surprised, even when you find somebody in college. I mean, think about it this way. Let's just say that because of the track record right now in USC, you don't think Lincoln Riley might actually go for that job and be an offensive coordinator? I mean, I don't think this is my thing. We've seen Steve Sarkisian be an OC after Bama and go to Atlanta, but that was different. And we've seen with what he was there, which is why I think for Sarkisian, he's better off in college. But the great thing about Lincoln Riley is he's a great play designer. You translate that as an offensive coordinator in the NFL. I mean, we're seeing with what that is with Ryan Grube. I think the problem was after last night, you should have moved off with Geno Smith. I don't get it, man. They should have been able to draft a quarterback. They should have taken Penix because him and Grube, they both have a great relationship in Washington. But that didn't happen. So all I'm saying is that I think you'd be surprised how many offensive-minded, at least the clever ones, because these coaches are smart enough that if you bring a winning culture, you're going to bring in a winning guy. They're not that nitpicky with trying to get these guys right. Because, I mean, like I said, the defense looks much better with the Chargers now. The only difference of it is we know with what Greg Roman is. But Herbert hasn't turned over the ball. He throws it at, like, the play action with the Chargers is beautiful. And it's better. It's efficient. That's why I think with Vrabel, you get a smart offensive-minded guy and you bring a winning culture where guys on defense, I mean, they're going to play hard, but a defensive-minded coach with a culture mindset gives Caleb Williams confidence. It also strengthens up your offensive line for them to defend and play harder. And at the same time, they've always been known for ground and pound rushing. So that's what I'm saying. I've seen this happen before. I mean, even when you look at a Pete Carroll was very smart, defensive-minded, but he built a culture in Seattle. The difference is I think down the stretch, Carroll kind of got carried away with the loyalty because he was loyal with that offensive coordinator for a very long time. And that was way past due. That needed to move on. But I'm just saying, I've seen this before, and I think it's just going to need a lot more. Between Chicago and the Jets, they need a culture restorer in this building. I'm telling you.
It's hard to sit here and say because we don't know how Joe Brady, how Ben Johnson, how Liam Cohn from Tampa Bay. We don't know how they are going to be as head coaches because in order to be a good head coach, you got to have a shot to begin with. However, it is very difficult to sit here and say, I want to bring in a defensive guy as the head coach because if you look at the NFL right now, how many successful defensive head coaches are there? Successful.
There's only been a couple.
Tomlin?
Well, the thing Tomlin, yes. But we know the criticisms on Tomlin is that he's not overly creative. Like, it doesn't seem like he gets this kind of offense. I mean, how many years has it taken for him to build an offensive line? But defenses is always very good. And at the same time, you got a quarterback now, and like I told you, you are not going to walk in to that division being mediocre at quarterback when you're facing Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, and Myles Garrett twice a year. You were just not going to do that. And that's why they went and got Russ.
But what I'm saying is, like, out of all of the guys in the NFC North, who was the only defensive-minded head coach? Matt Eberflus.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Eberflus was the only defensive-minded head coach. Dan Campbell played tight end when he was a player in the NFL, so he's been an offensive guy, but he's got the offensive coordinator to do it. But, like, what's happened in the NFL with a lot of these teams? You know, you got a Sean McVay, very great offensive mind, very good offense and stuff with what he does. Kyle Shanahan, very great offensive mind, very good offense with what he does. Matt LaFleur, you know, great offensive head coach, great offensive mind. Like, his team's winning. Kevin O'Connell, look at what he's doing with Sam Darnold and the resurgence of how he's been able to play and what he's been able to do. It's a lot easier to find a defensive coordinator than it is to be and, you know, have success than it is to find an offensive coordinator and have success. I'm with you. I believe that Vrabel would be a great head coach wherever he goes. But for the Chicago Bears, being in a division like that, being in a, you know, NFL with the caliber of quarterback that Caleb Williams is, you need a good offensive coordinator or an offensive play caller that's going to get the best out of you, your offense, and with how you score points. Because the problem that they've had is they've been one of the most sacked quarterback this year, and have had one of the lowest point totals in all of this year as well. And their defense has been ranked in the top 10 all season long. Their problem is that, you know, they've struggled scoring up to 21 points a game all this year. So I understand. I agree with you. I think Mike Vrabel would be a good head coach. I don't think he's a good fit for the Bears just because of the way that you need to run this organization.
All right. I mean, it's fair. I mean, the thing is what I look at is I'm just looking at because here's the thing. We've known with who Bill Belichick was. Right?
Yeah.
Great defensive coach, right?
Phenomenal.
There's no denying. But
won a Super Bowl with just being a defensive coordinator.
Yeah, and here's the thing. It's hard to say that it cannot work. But the difference is that Belichick was a culture guy. Okay, the culture was do your job. Now, the only perfect builder that he had was Tom Brady. And I think also Tom Brady had a track record of offensive coordinators over the time that put together the play schemes. But you also think about it, Josh McDaniels was also very smart in it. So he was better off being an offensive coordinator than a head coach. Okay, and this happens for a lot of coordinators. Make no mistake of it. Okay, because we know that coordinators, everybody's trying to find the next Sean McVay. But that's not as easy said than done. It's not easy, because the thing about McVay is you saw with what McVay was fixing the offense, but now look at what he is now that this is the Rams culture. He's turned into a culture guy. And that's the same thing even when you look at a Kyle Shanahan. Now, I think Shanahan, difference of it is his play schemes clearly work. I just haven't seen him with a super talented quarterback. And that's one that I'm hoping we might see at some point soon in his coaching career where he gets that quarterback. But all I'm saying is we have seen the moments of coordinators, both offensive and defensive, which we know that. But the funny thing is you can't even tell that Dan Campbell is an offensive-minded guy just because of the attitude he brings in. You can't even tell. That's why I'm like, it kind of fools people from that because that's where you just see that the players are willing. There's a difference between players that are willing to play and players that are willing to go to war for a coach. That's the thing. And so and it's classic. I see this all the time. But again, there's options. I'm just saying that I think it's a lot more than what people kind of see this for. And everybody has different perceptions of it. I'm not denying that at all. But I just think in a bigger culture setting like Chicago, I just think it's going to need a lot more than that. And I know a lot of people, again, there's no right or wrong. I just think that we all have different perspectives of it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I think, and again, if Ben Johnson takes the job, I wish nothing of the best for him. But don't be surprised if this becomes a pendulum swing where, let's say he gets the offense right, but then the defense now is bottom tier. Then what do you do then? These are hypothetical questions everybody has to ask themselves. And these do happen. So we'll see. But all in good stuff, man. By the way, I know you were enjoying that first round of the college football playoff. And I gave a piece of my mind last night because again, I think the committee is going to have to reorganize this thing the next time around.
Miami would have done a lot better if they were in.
What?
Miami would have done a lot better if they were in. They would have given Texas a run for their money if they were in there.
Wait. You just said Miami after I just watched SMU get pounded by Penn State? After I just watched Ohio State handed to Tennessee? Come on. I thought I knew you better with that. What the hell?
Dude, I don't know what is the hate with Cam Ward in Miami.
Listen, I love Cam Ward, but here's my problem with it is the ACC, and this is what I've been saying several times, the ACC is nowhere close to the talent level of the Big Ten and the SEC. You know this, especially for someone that vouches for Ohio State. You know what the Big Ten's about. Physical. And if you really think about it, and I've heard a lot of people of Ohio State fans, if you practically think about it, if they were not in the Big Ten, you know what they'd be? The SEC's North. That's what Ohio State would be. They're a Big Ten team with an SEC identity. That's what they have. You really think Miami is prepared for something like that?
Yes, and here's the reason why. Because at least this year they would have been. At least this year, because here's the reason why. Because I have seen Miami play a lot this year, and I have seen the way that their offense functions and the way that Ward carries them down the field and puts the team on his back. If they were that 12 spot over Clemson, they give Texas a better game than what Clemson does. Guaranteed.
Guess what? If it was Texas, you know what they would be saying? Okay, well, full frontal defense, we're going to box you in and we're going to end up pressurizing you. Doesn't mean that they got to go for sacks, but they got to go for quarterback hits. They got to put on pressures. They just got to wear out Cam Ward like that. But then here's the other thing. You talk about Texas. What if they were in SMU's position? Where not only is it that Cam Ward, we know what he can do offensively, but then defensively, how are you going to stop Drew Aller? How are you going to stop Tyler Warren? How are you going to end up stopping that ferocious run game that Penn State is known to do?
And they've had a lot of games like that this year where, it was more of an offensive shootout. I've seen this man come down from being down 25 points because the defense sucked, 25, and come back and carry that team to victory. And I understand that playing against teams like that, where you have, Tyler Warren and Drew Aller and, the run game that they do, I have seen this man with literal guys draped all over him and throw a ball on a laser straight to the tight end and get 15 yards on a 4th and 17 or a 4th and 15 and get the first down. I have seen this guy with somebody draped all over on his back, and he's falling backwards and launches it straight forward into a receiver's hands, into Xavier Restrepo, and Restrepo goes 30 yards to the end zone. I have seen this man literally take an entire defensive line and step up in the pocket and just rip it down the field to a wide open wide receiver, or read the defense and feel like, okay, that guy's coming towards me. Cool. I'm going over here. I have seen that from that man. I have watched 7 different games of Miami play this year, and I can tell you this definitively. And he is the sole reason why Texas would have had a very close game with Miami if they were in over Clemson. And that is the only reason I am saying that. Cam Ward is the only reason that I am saying that, because I feel like that man would have given Miami the better chance to win over Texas than what Clemson would have.
Well, here's the thing. I'm not denying he's not a first-round talent. I'm not saying that at all. But I also have seen him get upset by Syracuse, who, by the way, Kyle McCord was a Big Ten quarterback. You remember him? I get so sick and tired of that argument. I get so sick and tired of that, because he was a Big Ten quarterback, Big Ten, playing in the big competition that he did. And oh my gosh, he played in the big competition that he did and played against some of the best defenses and still shit his pants. He plays for Syracuse, a team that is no name and terrible. And the reason why Miami lost that game is because Cam Ward had 320 yards and 2 TDs that game. His defense cost him that game, but the offense kept him in that game. Winning by 9 points is not that impressive when you have a team that has a garbage-ass defense and they still scored 36 points against them. But you all...
Oh, my gosh. The Kyle McCord argument is such bullshit, and I hate it. I hate that so much.
Hey, listen.
Oh.
But you know what, though? I would rather take a quarterback that I know has experience in the Big Ten amongst an ACC who just... I mean, I watched Florida State. I watched Louisville. I watched Duke. I watched a lot of these other programs, and for God's sakes, they are nowhere close.
They play Iowa State on Saturday. Are you going to watch that Miami-Iowa State game?
You know what? I probably will. But you know what, though? Here's the thing. Do you really look? You really think Cam Ward's going to honestly play in that bowl game?
I do. I truly do.
What? Oh, come on.
Here's the thing.
You got a lot to learn, my friend.
Has there been any reports come out saying that he's not playing?
Why would you even play in a bowl game that has no meaning? You're a first-round talent.
Because he loves the game of football and he wants to make sure that he's the number one quarterback.
Give me a break. Come on.
Listen,
believe that, do you?
If I'm a college quarterback, okay, and I know I'm a first-round talent, but I want to solidify myself as the best quarterback and the first one to come off the board, I'm playing in a bowl game. I don't give a damn if it's meaningless. I don't give a damn if whatever it is, until he comes out or there's a report that comes out and says that he's not playing in that game. I think he will. I really think that he will play in that game. And if he doesn't, Iowa State will win. If he does, I think Miami will win.
I mean, what more? Look, I got his stats right in front of me. Okay, as a senior, he's thrown for 4,123 passing yards, 36 touchdowns, 7 picks, and a QBR rating of 88. What more does he have to prove? What? He's already a first-round talent. You've already stapled that. What more do you need to prove? Look,
36. In the rushing touchdowns either. You are not factoring in the rushing TDs.
No, but I'm saying from as far as the passing.
Yeah.
I haven't put in the rushing. And listen, he probably got more rushing touchdowns, but honestly, what more do you need to prove? These guys.
That's fair. I can see the argument.
That's what I'm saying. The college football, you know what it is that these bowl games these days is like, yes, it's fun to watch because of the bowl game. But you know what it is compared to when I watch college football? It's now become you are bringing in the next line of freshmen and sophomores, okay, to potentially be on this roster come next season. That's why they're playing in this bowl game. And at the same time, you know, you're going to be playing spring football, right? And the thing about that is why, if you're a first round talent, my fear of this is what happens if Cam Ward ends up getting hurt in this game? Then what happens to his draft stock? That's what I'm saying. What more do you really need to prove? You're already etched as a first-round quarterback, okay? You're going in the same round as Shedeur Sanders. Why do you need to do that? That's why I'm like, look, thank you for everything you've done in college football and especially in the University of Miami, but you're an NFL talent. Go get yours. That's all I care about. And this is why that I'm like, why do they need to do that? It doesn't make any sense to me because the NFL is, what did we just get? We just got a whole overhaul of quarterbacks that are literally hitting right now. Why do I need to screw that up with Cam Ward? I would love to see Cam Ward. Look, I would love to see Cam Ward in the Big Apple with the Giants, literally pull them out of that purgatory that they've been in. I would love to see him in Cleveland, which I know you always vouch for with Cleveland. Bring them up and at least get them back on track. But I don't want to risk him getting hurt in a bowl game?
Gosh. Imagine if he got New York or Cleveland out of the gutter. Like how good he would be as a quarterback. Like, oh my gosh.
Here's the thing. Like with Cam and Brian Dable, with Malik Neighbors, like that is one that Giants fans can't wait for. And clearly is a better passer than Daniel Jones. No question about it.
The thing is, do they take him or Shedeur?
Either one of them. And they're not. This is what's funny is they're not even in a bad spot. So yeah,
they aren't. Like it all comes down to how tomorrow's game's gonna go, whether or not the Giants actually win against the Colts.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, you're right. It's gonna be interesting with that. But look, man, we didn't even take a break on this. We've been listen. We've had. This is what fans have to understand is we've been back and forth with this all like the last few weeks, but it's been fun. It's been entertaining, but it's like, man, we didn't even get a break. Sometimes somebody's got to snap their fingers on our faces and go like, hey, we got to take a break here. And listen, even when it's a boxing match where we're going in for like 12 rounds, we still got to take at least a little 30-minute break.
I've been wrong. I've been wrong several times before, and I'm not scared to admit when I'm wrong.
And you know what? I can admit when I'm wrong all the time. I don't like being listen, people misconstrue the concept and the idea that they think I love to be right. I don't. Like, if I'm right up on one thing, it is what it is. I'm not going to sit and boast and crow at like 7 a.m. in Mountain Time here in the Rocky Mountains and caring about, I was right about this. No, nobody cares. Look,
Fun fact, guys, he was wrong about the Commanders-Eagles game.
You know what? Listen, one thing. But I'm not.
And the Cardinals and Panthers.
Well, you know what? Look, I'm not gonna lose sleep over it. You think I care? Listen, I wear this wristband. You know what it says? Nobody cares. Work harder. That should tell you right there. All right. Well, listen, we got to get to our prime predictions because we've had a very good, solid start this past week. And listen, after these Christmas games and then whatever the hell that was last night, we at least got Saturday and we got Sunday. So let's go ahead and commence with our prime predictions.
Let's turn it up. It's Jake's Prime Predictions.
So the LA Chargers are on the road in New England. Now, this is actually going to be a fun game for myself to evaluate because both the Chargers and the Patriots, we know what their history has been since Tom Brady and probably since Cam Newton and Mac Jones. But the last time these two teams met, you know that game was 9-6. The Chargers won on the road. It was so bad. The Chargers do want to revamp the offense and be better. But that's not the sole thing. My question is how will we evaluate Drake May? Because you know how many NFL comps Drake May got? He got Justin Herbert in all of them. So now to see Drake May against Justin Herbert, let's see if we see a little bit of a mirroring image of the two of them. Both are bigger bodied, both have strong arms. I think the takeaway of it is I think the Chargers, they get J.K. Dobbins back. Gus Edwards is out. Now, they do have a couple pieces that we know are out, but they do have a couple pieces that are coming back. So that's important. They get their run game back. The 5.5 doesn't seem so terrible. I'll take the Chargers up on it, and I will take them to win with a better scoring margin than last time gave us. Give me a 24 to 20. Give me a 27-21. Chargers win on the road. Okay, so I know this seems pretty dicey, and as much as I love Denver, and I love Bo Nix, and I love that Denver defense, I'm going with the Cincinnati Bengals as an all-or-nothing game at -3. Listen, Joe Burrow has faced top-tier, talented defenses, and has nearly carved up all of them. The difference of it is his defense with points margin hasn't really done him any justice. And I think with Joe Burrow, he's going to continue to map that resume as him being a very talented quarterback, offensively productive with the receiving core that he has. I don't think that's going to be a problem at all. But I'm going to take the Cincinnati Bengals -3. I know I might get pushed back here in Denver, but I think this is going to be an interesting game nonetheless. Cincinnati wins this one at home, 27-20. This is an interesting game, in my opinion, but I think after what I've seen from the Arizona Cardinals, I don't trust them as much. Give me the LA Rams at home, -6.5. Now, it is an in-division rival game. And the only thing is, Stafford, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, and Kyren Williams, all of the offensive pieces are getting healthier. And the Rams right now are on that track of being the dark horse team in the NFC that could cause problems in the playoffs. And we know with what Sean McVay is, he's not only just an offensive guy, he's now become the culture offensive guy, where everyone back on offense, they're all going to be playing on all cylinders. And I think the Rams will probably end up beating the Arizona Cardinals at home comfortably. Give me the Rams to win on a final score of 27-17. So it's a must-win right now, but Anthony Richardson, from what I'm told, is not going to be playing in this game. But I don't trust the money line at all. Give me the Giants at +9 against the Colts. I do believe the Colts may end up winning this game because parts of that defense outside of that front line is suspect. And here's the other thing. Jonathan Taylor is a hell of a runner on ground and pound. But not only that, they've got a bunch of receiving options I like. Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, Michael Pittman. Now, as far as Joe Flacco, that first go-around when he came in to step in for Anthony Richardson was not great. But maybe it took a little bit of time. I think Joe Flacco comes in a must-win for the Colts. Now, a 9-point margin is probably too high, in my opinion. That's why I'll take the Giants points, but I will take the Colts to win with one more week to do it and win this game 24-21. So as much as I don't like the Atlanta Falcons as favorites, I love them as underdogs. Give me the +4 on the Atlanta Falcons. Now, the Commanders are coming off of an emotional win against the Philadelphia Eagles. And the reason for that is they ended up beating them once Jalen Hurts went down with an injury. Kenny Pickett only did what he could, but Jaden Daniels, I mean, he is by far terrific. Now, if you've been paying attention to Michael Penix, he is accurate of the football, and just because he threw an interception last week does not mean He's not making the targeted throws that he should. I think Michael Penix, since he got at least 1 week of football in, by the second week, I think Michael Penix might actually be in pretty damn good shape. And not to mention, they've got a secondary that could cause problems, and Terry McLaurin not in the lineup screams to me hard adversity for Jaden Daniels. I will take the Falcons to win and cover in a close game, 21-20. Raiders and the Saints, I mean, this is kind of just a throwaway game. Give me the Saints at +1. Now, I know the Jags kind of let us down in the last matchup, but I think the Raiders really hurt themselves. And I think they're trying to tell themselves, don't do that again. But the Saints, they've got Spencer Rattler back. And here's the thing. This is going to be a snooze fest of a game. I already know this, like, off the top of my head. But I think the Raiders realize, hey, we can't just be winning games and then we lose out on Shedeur Sanders. We've still got a task at hand. So give me the New Orleans Saints to win this one and cover. I'll give this one. It's going to be such an ugly score. I can't wait. I really don't want to look at the score at the end of this matchup. Give it to me about 14-13. Saints end up winning this one. It's going to be just god-awful ugly. All right, so the Titans and the Jags. We know that the Titans ended up benching Will Levis. They're going with Mason Rudolph for the remainder of the year. And at the same time, the Jacksonville Jaguars, I mean, they are with what they are, but give me the Tennessee Titans in this matchup. I don't trust a whole lot of the Jacksonville Jaguars and what they did. But, however, Brian Callahan, what's different about him is that there has been a little bit of a turn-up with their offense. So maybe they might be figuring something out here a little bit. But defensively, they've got some pretty good players. And I know that they're hurting some of their star players. But this, in an in-division rival matchup, I see Tennessee really giving it on their defensive front. That's what's really going to be the difference maker. I'll take the Titans to win this one. It's an even, so I don't end up losing this one at all. So give me the Titans to win and beat the Jacksonville Jaguars 24-20. Now, as far as the Jets and the Buffalo Bills, this is an interesting one because Aaron Rodgers, if you believe it or not, has been playing better football since connecting with Devontae Adams. Give me the Jets points at +10. I love Josh Allen, but the only thing that's suspect to me is that Bills defense. That Bills defense, not only did they put 90 points on the board, look at how much they gave up on defense. That screams concern. Now, I think the Bills initially will win this game, but Josh Allen didn't even have his best game against New England last week. So he's going back-to-back division rival matchup. And more importantly, they're not playing for a number 1 seed now that Kansas City got it. So I think, to me personally, the Bills in a game like this with that defense, I'll take the Jets +10 points, but the Bills still to win in this game. But give me the covered points 27-23. So this is an interesting matchup, the Panthers and the Buccaneers. Now, I watched Tampa Bay after putting that 40-burger against the Chargers, and then they got stopped. They got stopped big time. But I think the Panthers are going to give them a game. Give me the Panthers plus points at +9. Now, I love Baker Mayfield, and I love Mike Evans. But the problem of that Tampa defense is Tampa, they haven't quite been solidified themselves. And if you think about it, since a few games already with Bryce Young is turning into the promising quarterback that we saw in the draft. He looks much better. The ball release is coming out quicker. And at the same time, he's making the decisions that are much better. By the way, here's another thing. Deontay Johnson, since he left, you know how many games the Panthers have won? 3. They actually have been in a very good tear since his departure to Baltimore and now being with the Texans. So to me personally, I think the Panthers, they're figuring some stuff out. Dave Canales, it took him a little bit of time to get this thing cooking, but Bryce Young looks better. I'll take the Panthers plus 9 points, but give me the Buccaneers to win because they want this division more than anything, and it's going to come down to the wire. I'll take it 23-20 with that plus 9. Boy, this is the playoff game of the century between Green Bay and Minnesota. Now, last time these two met, it was a 2-point margin, 31-29. I will take the Green Bay Packers with their plus 1 point. Now, I think what the Packers are starting to figure out is that when Josh Jacobs is running the football, the offense is very efficient. They actually play better when he's rushing for a certain amount of yards and at the same time when he has X amount of carries. Run first. And you know what's funny about this is Matt LaFleur, if you remember his days in Tennessee when he was with Derrick Henry, the one thing they voiced about is Matt LaFleur is a run-first pass offense. Nobody knew that, but he loves the ground game more than anything. That's why I think it's clicked with Josh Jacobs. And because they're facing the Minnesota Vikings, I don't take away with what the Vikings have put together. But I do believe, though, the Packers are going to make this a hell of a game. I think the Vikings still win, but that plus 1, that's going to be entertaining, but it's going to be a lot closer than people think. Give me the Vikings to win, but the Packers points to cover 28-27. So it's a must-win for the Miami Dolphins, but you know what? I just feel like this could turn pretty ugly pretty fast. I'm going to take the Browns points at 6.5. Listen, I like Tua, and I like what the Miami Dolphins have been doing, at least up to this point, but there is a lot of pressure on them because they have to win out their last 2 games to even be considered in the playoff picture. And because you think Denver and you think the Chargers are going to give that up, no way. I think Miami, they're going to have a difficult time when Teron Armstead not available in this game. You got Myles Garrett, who we know is kind of pissed, but he's going to be playing his best defense. And I think, honestly, with the Dolphins, this will probably be their chance they lose out on the playoffs. And I think this is going to close the chapter on them. I could see the Cleveland Browns, and I know their quarterback situation is not great, but I just see this game getting pretty ugly, pretty fast with their defense giving hell to Tua and that offense. Not to mention Tyreek Hill hasn't looked the same. Give me the Browns to cover at 6.5. I know Chase don't like the idea, but this could be one that they drop for the Miami Dolphins. 6.5. Give me the Browns to win 24-17. All right, so the Detroit Lions and the San Francisco 49ers, the 49ers look gassed and they look tired. I'm going to take the Detroit Lions at 3.5. The Detroit Lions, amongst the Minnesota Vikings and the Philadelphia Eagles, who are fighting for the number 1 seed. This is the opportunity for the Detroit Lions to take care of business. And because of that, they are getting some important pieces back. So they're not completely out of the race just yet. And they trust a lot of their guys who have been stepping up in crucial situations. I trust what Detroit is putting together. But, man, San Francisco, they got no breaks whatsoever. They are getting some guys back, but Dre Greenlaw is shut down for the rest of the season. And I don't think they're going to risk these guys getting hurt, and then all of a sudden it's bad for the next week ahead. So I'll take the Lions 3.5 points to win this game against San Francisco, 28-21. There you go. There's my prime predictions for you there. Some pretty tasty stuff, and we're almost there to wrapping the season up. But look, I know with as far as Cleveland, they've got other plans. But Miami is going to have such a hard time. You got no Teron Armstead on that line this week. So that means Myles Garrett's probably going to end up having to feast on Tua.
I mean that maybe if they decide to pass it, but they're probably going to run, and we get gashed by the run every single week. So
but here's what's
Devon
funny.
Etienne's going to eat.
But here's what's funny. They haven't been able to figure out their run game as much. I mean, they have speed there, but for whatever reason, they've been having troubles with the run. And it hasn't connected. And we've had a bunch of people talk about this with Mike McDaniel's questionable play call. And that's one of the reasons why I think in a matchup like the Browns, Miami knows they have to win out these last two games. I just think that's going to be a lot of pressure for them. I think this is where the road stops for them. The Colts have a better chance of staying alive than the Miami Dolphins do. I'm serious. I think this is kind of the thing right now. And believe me, I think the Colts have one more week in them, but I think come next week, I think that's when they'll be done too. Because you got to think, the Chargers getting the Patriots and the Raiders, it seems to me like they're pretty much in. But then you've got Denver with Cincinnati, and then they got to play the Chiefs.
And Mahomes has already come out and said that he's playing in that game because they're going to have 24 days off before their next game. So he's gonna want to play at least a quarter in that game.
Oh, of course. I mean, getting well rested, warming up that bionic ankle, not surprised. But it is.
Yeah, he said that he wants to play, so I could see the Denver Broncos losing that game, but I don't know. I mean, I agree with you. I think Miles is going to have a field day with Tua and everything, but I thought he was going to have a field day with Kansas City as well. I mean, he was getting to Mahomes, and he was literally 2 inches from sacking him, but then he would run out the pocket or run away from him and everything. I just don't think that. I think Tua's going to get the ball off way too damn quick because without JOK up the middle, our linebacker core is kind of weak at covering and also not getting enough pressure on the quarterback. And I do think that we get gashed by every team's run game, and I think that regardless of how their run game has been sus, I still think that they're going to gash us in that aspect. And last time that they played us, I thought we were going to do well, and we ended up getting blown out 31-7. So I think that, and with DTR and how shitty he is, I truly do not see us winning this game.
You also got to understand, if you were in Miami, totally different story. You're in Cleveland.
It's going to be 50 degrees.
Semi-cold. Probably something that I think, depending on it, it may be interesting. But
yeah, it's going to be 50 and rainy. I mean, they're used to the rain down in Miami. It's not going to be as cold as what people were expecting. They were expecting 20, 30 degree weather. Yeah. But it's going to be 50, which is semi-warm for the Miami Dolphins and everything. So Cleveland's at a disadvantage with that. So I would not be mad. I mean, I would be mad, but I would not be upset with the win. But I just don't see it happening because us playing the Dolphins this week, and then the Ravens playing their starters next week because they have to. Because if they don't and we win, and the Steelers end up winning, then they win the division and everything. And right now, the Ravens are just fighting for seeding, so they're gonna not rest their starters. And if we're going back through the predictions, I'd say I got the Panthers winning over the Bucks, getting their revenge from the last time with the Chuba Hubbard fumble that they had that cost them the game. I see the Panthers winning this time around. I see the Titans beating the Jags as well. I see the Raiders beating the Saints. The Chargers and Patriots is an interesting one.
It is.
Depending, I mean, the Chargers have already clinched, so it really just depends on what Harbaugh wants to do. But I could see the Patriots winning that game, but I'll give it to the Chargers. And then I do see the Giants beating the Colts and everything because I think that they're going to, fall flat on their face and come back out and win.
And here's the thing is that the Colts, I mean, they're going to go with Joe Flacco in this one, but the Colts have more of the offensive personnel than right now with what the Giants have at quarterback, which gives you an edge. And at the same time, I mean, as far as some of the defensive pieces, they're not going to cover a whole lot. When you got Alec Pierce, you've got Josh Downs, and Michael Pittman. So that's going to be a little different. And you got to make them work. And at the same time, Jonathan Taylor's not afraid to run. So
where's AR? What's wrong with him?
I think right now there's an injury report. on AR. So that's why he's not there up in practice. So that's what I'm told, at least from there. But yeah, there's going to be the possibility from it. But here's what's funny to talk about the Chargers and the Patriots. The prediction is right now that BetUS is already talking about the Chargers money line at 215. And the reason for it is because the Chargers are giving 4 points at New England, and it's in the frigid Foxborough as opposed to the warm weather of Southern California. But it's playing in the money line, and it also feels better than trying to cover it in the December winter. So, which is why, and Justin Herbert has played in this kind of atmosphere before. It was not a pretty win either. It was 9-6 last time. So, but I think with Harbaugh, who's been in cold weather in Michigan, understands what the magnitude will be in Foxborough. So I think that Chargers money line, I'm actually kind of happy. Some of the betting guys are thinking that prediction is that 215 money line. They like it. And you know what's funny is the Broncos and the Bengals, they're already talking about over 50 points. So but the reason of this is because we've watched Joe Burrow go toe-to-toe with really good defenses. That's why it's not going to be smoke and mirrors. Now, they do get Riley Moss back for Denver. So they'll have both him and Pat Surtain. But Burrow is not shying away from a competition.
No,
he's been productive thus far. That's why I don't see him folding. And then finally, my favorite, this is probably my lock-in bet, and that's that Falcons +4. Because you are having to prepare for 2 rookie quarterbacks who you have no piece of film on. And with the Falcons, I think they have a better shot because they strain my wallet as favorites. I despise them as favorites, but as underdogs, I feel much more better with that because at least with it. And by the way, did you watch the throws that Michael Penix made? Sure, he only threw a pick, but man, these were NFL quality throws. That's why I'm like,
I agree.
And Washington hasn't prepared. They may have had film on Kirk Cousins, but they don't have film on Michael Penix. And they're going to be without Terry McLaurin, which is why that's going to be harder for Washington. They're coming off of an emotional win over Philly, and then to play the Falcons, who are playing for a must-win in the division, give me the Falcons +4. That's why I like it more because the fact that these are 2 rookie quarterbacks that are going at it, and there is no film on either of them. So that is going to be my fun lock bet right there. Falcons and the Commanders. That's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, and I want to say this before we get going, but I can see 3 head coaches at the end of the season, like after the season's over with, get fired, and one of them is going to be a surprise. Like a shocker that nobody's going to expect.
Well, one of them better be Doug Peterson. You already know that Jacksonville is just just get it over with. Be done.
I think it's going to be Jacksonville, and then Todd Bowles if the Bucks don't win the division.
You really think they're going to fire Todd Bowles?
I think if the Bucks don't win the division, I think that they're going to fire Todd Bowles, and I think that just because of the collapse that the Bucks have had in terms of that, I think the reason why Todd Bowles stuck around is because of Baker Mayfield and he saved his job. But I think that if you fired Todd Bowles and promoted Liam Cohen like the offensive coordinator, I think that the Bucks would have much more success. And then the surprising guy that I could see get fired, even though I don't want him to, would probably be Kevin Stefanski, just because.
Wow.
With all of the flack that's coming out with Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, Joel Bitonio, and a bunch of the other vets, they all said that they're going to talk with the ownership after the season and see what they are going to do. Moving forward, seeing what the plan is, because they want a plan for success. And if all of these veteran players and your best guys are going to the ownership saying, the coach, we need to make a change at coach, I could see them letting go of Kevin Stefanski after they've already came out and said that they're keeping him. Now, I don't know how true this is. I'm going to have to do some digging. I did see where Andrew Berry got promoted to president of football operations for the Browns, and that Jimmy Haslam is interested in Joe Douglas as a GM, which would be interesting.
And you know what? I mean, well, at least with Joe Douglas,
he knows how to pick talent.
He does. But he also does have that experience with being in, I would say, kind of more of a meddling ownership with the Jets. So that is an interesting one. I like it. I think it's kind of something interesting, but yeah, Joe Douglas, I'd be okay with that. He does hit on talent, and it's not like Andrew Berry, he doesn't. But if that's the promotional side of things, then yeah, I could see this working. But man, Kevin Stefanski, though, I know a lot of teams that are going to want to be making phone calls once he's available. Right off the bat.
I can sit here and say that Jacksonville would give him a call, the Jets would give him a call. Hell, I think the Bears would even give him a call to be their coach. And I could see, if somehow, some way, whatever reason it may be, if the Giants ended up firing Daboll, they would take him. Hell, I could even see the Chargers offering him an OC job over Greg Roman.
That could be too. But you also got to think about this as well. That's pretty difficult to move into an offensive coordinating job after you've just been 2-time coach of the year. Now, here's maybe one that might surprise you too. What about the Raiders? If you get Shedeur Sanders.
Antonio Pierce, yeah. I could definitely see that. I could see them probably letting go of Pierce and bringing in Stefanski.
Raider fans would actually really like that.
They would repent and be like, yes.
They would be like, Jake, don't play with my emotions, but thank God you were actually mentioning about this. Good stuff. Hey, by the way, we tested out the new mic in these last 2 days. Boy, does it sound clear as hell. I love it.
Hell yeah.
Beautiful Christmas gift. This is why it's always good to have the season of giving, man. So great Christmas, great shows. And by the way, we're going to be kicking off next week, ending 2024 in a big way and starting up 2025. I can't wait for it. And here's what's funny. More rumors, and this is why the NFL is so primed for this, because we got more NFL rumors. We'll talk about it off the air, but man, there is so much. When I tell you, I think this offseason, what's conflicting after this year is the run game has been substantial, which now it's shaping the wide receiver market. And you'd be shocked how many names are being thrown out there right now. And it ain't just the T. Higgins, and it's not just the Deebo Samuels. There's more. There is more. And I think
I want to run something by you real quick too.
Yeah.
I made a TikTok video where I had posted how I feel like Kevin and Andrew might get fired depending on how the interviews with the players go, like how Jimmy Haslam interviews with these players. Yeah. And I mentioned how if you are in a position to draft Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, you need to take it because you need to be able to win next year. And I've been in a battle going back and forth, arguing with another, I don't know if he's another Browns fan or if he just is a fan of football, but arguing, saying that they have so many holes that they need to just build the roster and skip a quarterback this year and then go get one next year. I think that if you have one of those two fall to you, you should not pass them up. What is your opinion? Because I was telling this guy, I'm like, you cannot go into this next season building the offensive line and the defensive line and everything like that and run it back with Deshaun Watson and then have a terrible season and have guys like Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward and all these other vets want to leave because you suck again.
So I don't mind the idea. And I also did get the update that apparently the news on it is that they have restructured Deshaun Watson's contract. They've done it again. Now, I think it gives him a better chance to then go on free agency and pick up a bunch of impactful pieces, like just to at least hold this steady. But I wouldn't even be mad at the idea of getting either Shedeur or getting either Cam Ward. Because eventually, I mean, you're going to want out of this Deshaun Watson thing. That's initially what's going to happen. But to do it, do you do it with the same group, or is this with a new regime? That's the serious question. And that's where I think when you look at it, I mean, they're already making the moves as it is before anything else happens. So I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea in my opinion. I do believe, though, there are some other needs I would look at as well, but I'm not opposed to that idea. I think it does give you I think it does give you the better safe side, in my opinion, because now you've restructured Deshaun's contract. So,
and reading into the contract, so what it was is they added, I think it was they added an extra year or two onto the contract in terms of, placing the money out further. So like his contract's up in 2026, but he can still get paid in 2027 or 28 if they wanted to. And it's also to the point where, now the cap hit, if you cut him next year, is not going to be that big for 2026 and everything.
No, so that does buy you some time. So
I was telling this guy, like, if by whatever chance, and like I told him, I'm like, I feel like people forget that there's other rounds in the NFL in the NFL draft, because they're like, well, we need O-line, we need this, we need that. I'm like, there are 7 rounds for a reason. Like, you're not going to go in there expecting to get every player in the first 3 rounds. Like, if you go pick up Cam Ward with that 5th pick, or if you end up getting like the 3rd pick, you pick him up. You go into the 2nd round, pick up like Josh Simmons, the offensive tackle from Ohio State. Then you go into the 3rd round and you pick up like a Deion Walker, defensive tackle from Kentucky. And then you pick up a Jalen Royals. You've already solidified yourself as filling 3 major positions of need right off the bat. And the thing is, if you go into next season and they want to have Deshaun compete for a starting job, if he starts the first 5-6 games of the season, he is terrible. You're sitting Cam Ward. Well, now you can bring him in, see what he can do the rest of the way, and then he may give the spark to the team that is desperately needed.
Right. No, 100%. Well, there's going to be There's going to be lots to talk about, but we got to wrap it up here on the show. Appreciate everybody for being with us. Hope all of you had an enjoyable holiday, Christmas, and these last few days. It's fun. Appreciate everybody for joining on by. Next week, everything that starts up strong usually always comes to an end, but that's where we start the new year in a big way. Appreciate everybody for being here with us this week and for the last and final week of 2024. You don't want to end up missing out on that here on the Snake Sports Talk Show. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you guys next week. Enjoy the craziness of the NFL slate this weekend. And by the time we get to the 31st, Boise State, Penn State, second round, here we go. It's going to be fun. See you later, guys.